Is it better? Okay. So, as I was saying, this work is part of my PhD work that I'm doing at UCSD with another PhD student, Murtaza Bukwala, and my PhD advisor, Professor Kim. The reason we are working on battery pack modeling is that recently there's been a lot of interest regarding the electrification of the aerospace sector. However, there are also a lot of challenges with putting batteries in an aircraft. So the first main challenge with current battery technology is safety. So we've had a lot of examples in the news with, for instance, Tesla that just caught fire or exploded. So we would like to avoid that in an aircraft, if possible in a car as well, but especially in an aircraft. Second challenge is the mass of the battery packs. So the gravimetric energy density of lithium-ion battery is significantly lower as compared to traditional fuel. So we need to really optimize everything we can to make this feasible. And finally, and that's more like a technical challenge, batteries and all the associated systems are complex models. There are multiphysics, with the electrochemistry within the battery, with the thermal, the mechanical if you put the batteries in the wings and due to the aerodynamic load. And there are also multi-scale from aerodynamic load at the system level to material scale within the battery. How we're working on this is by developing models and optimization algorithms for electric aircraft and conceptual design of electric aircraft. This is part of a NASA-sponsored project, and there is more information at this link. And the idea is there is not that many open source tools to basically design electric aircraft. So we want to create this tool, and we want to make them open source. And in particular, the work I've been doing is doing that for battery packs. So the first part of this work was to develop battery models. The second part was to integrate them in the battery packs, so including the thermomechanical effect, the fluid within the cooling channels. And finally, the last part is to perform topology optimization. So our lab has experience with topology optimization, and so to address especially the challenge with the added weight of the battery, we would like to optimize the battery pack. And here's an example of some preliminary work that we published on a small battery module optimization. But today I will be mostly talking about the forward analysis of battery pack, but everything I'm talking about is basically with the intention of developing topology optimization. That means we want to consider a few challenges associated with optimization. So the first one is we want to define everything on a fixed grid. So we use the level set method, and here's simple example on how we are making the surface evolve. So we want to use a fixed grid, and we want to be able to compute gradients. So the way we approach it and what I'm talking about today is a multiphysics approach, where we model the fluid within the cooling channels. Then we get the velocities in those cooling channels that basically goes into the heat transfer as a convective term. And then we have a strong coupling between the heat transfer and the electrochemistry within the batteries. So as the batteries are discharged, they generate heat, and the way they respond to a discharge is basically a function of the temperature. So that's our strong coupling. And the fluid flow and the heat transfer are modeled with FEniCS. And for the electrochemistry, we use PyBAM, which is an open source software. It stands for Python Battery Mathematical Modeling, and basically implement the electrochemical equations. For demonstration purposes, we worked with 3 concepts. Those are not realistic by any means. They just allow us to do very simple tests with 8 batteries. And the main difference between the different concepts is basically the location of the inlet and outlet. So concept 1 is at the top, concept 2 on the side, and then top and bottom for the third concept. And for the battery, we are working with LGM50 21700 batteries. Those are commercially available cells, and that's a thing that was very important for us is to use current battery technologies that you can directly use and put in an aircraft. For the fluid model, we are using Stokes flow. But because we want to do topology optimization, we want to define Stokes flow on the entire domain and not only in the channel, so we can account for the movement of the cooling channels during optimization. The way we define the Stokes flow in the entire domain is by adding penalization terms. So here in red, this is the alpha U. And the idea is that this alpha is 0 within the channel, so you recover your Stokes flow, but it's a very high value within the solid, so it penalizes the velocity within the solid and to basically minimize that velocity. But it's always a question of which value we pick for that penalization coefficient. So we can see that as we increase the value from 1 to here 10 million, we kind of recover the channel that we're expecting. However, as you increase that value, it takes more time for your solver to converge. So there is a trade-off in between the accuracy and the computational time. And as everything we are doing will go in an optimization loop, it's very important we don't basically pick a too high of a number for this alpha. So what we did is basically we did a pure Stokes model in console that served as validation for our implementation in FEniCS. And then we pick one point at the middle of the top channel and compare the velocity magnitude of the pure Stokes and the penalized Stokes in FEniCS. And we changed the alpha value and compared the error. And here we decided to go with 100 million for alpha, as that resulted in roughly 2% relative error that we deemed reasonable for this work. Then for the battery model, we are considering the Doyle-Fuller-Newman model, which is physics-based battery models derived from charge conservation, mass conservation, and electrochemical reaction. It's a multi-scale model, so we have charge and mass conservation in the electrolyte, so in blue here. And then we have the microscale, and at each point we are solving also charge and mass conservation at each point. And the way we couple the two is via this interface reaction. This is called the Butler-Volmer equation, and this is derived from electrochemistry. I won't have enough time to go in too much detail, but we recently published some results on this work. And we also worked with experimentalists to validate our model. So we compare two experiments for different discharge as well as power profile for an aircraft and at reasonable accuracy. For the heat transfer, this is simply a convection diffusion equation. It's a good illustration of the multiphysics, as we have the convection terms from the fluid flow, we have the diffusion, and then we have the heat source that comes from the battery models, where we have joule heating from the resistance of the cell, and as well as the electrochemical reaction that will lead to some heat generation. Here is a comparison with console, again, for validation for the body-fitted and the fixed grid approach. Then we coupled everything using OpenMDO, an open source software for multiphysics. The idea with OpenMDO is that we can bring all the different disciplines as classes, and so it's very easy to switch if we want to switch Stokes to Navier-Stokes without affecting the other equation. The way we handle the strong coupling within the heat transfer and the electrochemistry is with block-Gauss-Seidel or fixed point iteration methods, where we iterate until we reach some kind of equilibrium. So then once we've established that, we can compare the different concepts that I presented earlier, and you can look at everything you want, the heat flux temperature distribution, the velocity magnitude. For instance, here we looked at the maximum temperature and pressure drop. That's our factor to look at the efficiency of the cooling system and the pumping power. And we can see that concept 2 has the lowest maximum temperature as well as lowest pressure drop. So it seems to be the most promising. But again, these were just to check the tool and see if we could look at trade-off between different concepts. So in this work, we developed an electrochemical-thermal-fluid model of a battery pack using FEniCS. We couple the different discipline via OpenMDO that we also use for the strong coupling. And we use the framework to compare very simple concept. The next step for us is to use OpenMDO to compute the total derivative. So OpenMDO is is a nice tool because if you give it partials, basically will automatically assemble all the adjoint equation and then give you the gradient that you need for optimization. And then once we have that, we want to perform parametric and topology optimization of battery pack. And before concluding my talk, I would just like to acknowledge that this work has been sponsored by NASA, as well as LG that helped us for the battery modeling. So thank you very much.